So thanks for joining us on our first monthly webinar. So a couple touch points on this. So we're gonna give you some information, right? We're gonna do probably 30 to 40 minutes of information, and then we're gonna try and have some discussions and some feedback and some points to talk. So please, if there's the logical point to talk, please unmute yourself and talk to us, because we're isolated in our houses, and hearing other people talk other than the three of us is a good thing. And then the other thing is, if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. Whoever is not presenting of the three of us, the other two will be monitoring the chat and trying to answer questions as we can. So please feel free to ask any questions or add anything to the discussion in the chat as well. So let's get rolling. All right, so we have our cool icebreaker. I feel like I learned a lot. All right, so the first title and the first topics of our webinar series is starting your year strong. So this is going to be very much the jack of all trades, master of none, where we're going to give you a little bit of information on a lot of different topics to try and set you up for success at your host site, because we know that we're in the start of the year, and we're going to try and give you some tools. Also, I'm going to apologize because my dog is in the background. She sees a squirrel. It's very exciting for her. She's fine if you hear a dog whining. She just sees a squirrel, and it's very exciting. So with that being said, I will mute, and here you go, Mara.
Thank you, Meredith. Awesome. So I just wanted to start talking about supervisor communication, because to be totally honest, sometimes the supervisor is what makes or breaks a Vista year. If you have a great supervisor, chances are your Vista year will be amazing. If you have a bad supervisor, oftentimes it really will make your Vista year horrible. So we just want to start off with how to have good communication with your supervisor. So a few notes, big notes. You should probably be having a weekly check-in with your supervisor where you go over what's going on for the week, what are the big tasks, also what are some smaller tasks that need to get done. And they should also have time for you to have some input here too. And then also, you should probably know the best way to get in touch with your supervisor, and they should know the best way to get in touch with you too. So real quick, so I can get a feel of the group, type in the chat number 1 if it's really easy for you to get a hold of your supervisor, and then number 2 if it's not very easy for you to get a hold of your supervisor. So while everyone's working on that, awesome. I see a lot of ones. That's good. Sweet. So exactly, just know, hey, I can call them no problem, or they prefer email. All of that is good stuff to know. Number 2, things that have made my life a lot easier with my fabulous supervisor is having a team Trello, which is the online to-do list, and your whole team can share it. So I don't know if that would be easiest for you, but yeah, you just go to Trello.com and it's super easy. So that way I always know, oh, I have an hour. Oh, here's a task I can do really fast. And then also sharing calendars. If you use Outlook or Google Calendar, you should be able to share your calendar with your supervisor, and they should be able to share with you. It honestly makes communicating with your supervisor much easier, because you can be like, oh, I see they're in a super important meeting. That's why they're not getting back to me. Or, oh, I see they're not busy right now. I can totally call them. Yeah, and yeah, my little pumpkin over here is cute. He did a good job self-reflecting, saying, I don't have thumbs, so it's really hard for me to type emails out. So I'll just, I'll use Siri and call that way. So it's got that going for them. All right, next slide, Meredith. All right, now let's talk a little bit about feedback. Pam, I hope you don't mind. I just put your picture up here because it's a wonderful picture and full of so much joy. So feedback, I personally am not super confrontational, so knowing how to give feedback in a professional setting was really helpful for me during my service year. So if some of you, if you are really confident and great at and not flustered by confrontation, maybe this won't be the most helpful for you, but if you are bad at confrontation, this one is for you. So in general, I like to think about a feedback ratio as positive should be like 80% of the time, and adjusting feedback should be like 20% of the time. So good example of positive feedback is this diagram on the right here. The ghost says, "Hey Pam, really love your onion and your casserole." Pam says, "Thanks for this great positive feedback, Ghost. I love it." Yeah, so it doesn't need to be too formal, just like a specific compliment or specific recognizing of someone doing a good job. Yeah, but as far as adjusting feedback, that's like, hey, something really rubbed me the wrong way at work, or like, you know, this didn't feel too good. I think I need to address it, because you shouldn't ever really feel super uncomfortable at work or not good at work. Right. Another big note is that how you give feedback and how feedback goes over really depends on your relationship with your supervisor. Like if you have a close relationship and you and your supervisor are already like really gelling, the feedback can be like, it shouldn't be a daunting process. But if the relationship with your supervisor is tense, you should never use feedback as like a way to like antagonize the relationship. Not that I'm saying any of you would, but feedback can be a really helpful tool, and it shouldn't ever be used to like, you know, make someone feel attacked or feel bad. You know, it should is a way to find a solution to make everybody feel better. Right. Next bullet here, feedback should be commonplace, and your supervisor should already be like asking for your feedback and your input a lot. Like that's kind of in their job. But if they don't, there are a few ways you can start inputting that. You can start by asking tactfully, hey, would it be helpful if I gave you some feedback on this project? Or, hey, I feel like I'm in a really unique position as a Vista this year. Can I offer you some feedback from my unique perspective this year? So those are some ways you can kind of broach that topic. But also, if you're not feeling like your feedback is welcome at work, feel free to reach out to Chris or Meredith or me, and we can definitely talk about this, make a more concrete plan for your specific scenario. Last note is focus on your perspective and observable actions. I'll get into this a little bit more, so you can hit the next slide, Meredith. So if anybody is a diagram person, made this for you. This is in general the like specific feedback cycle. And yeah, you don't have to follow every step every time, but if you're new to feedback and like giving feedback makes you uncomfortable, for me, it's very helpful to have these steps planned out in advance before I go to give any feedback. So step one is you always want to ask if the person has time to hear feedback, right? Like you want to approach really respectfully, and be like, hey, do you have some time to hear some feedback right now? And if they say no, that's totally okay. Just schedule it for a time that you're both available. All right. And then step number 2 is you want to really root your feedback in an observation, like a specific thing you observed, a specific action you observed. And this will really help like take it from, hey, I'm attacking you as a person, to, hey, I saw you do this one thing, and that specific thing kind of made me not feel the best. So that really takes it away from them getting defensive about, it's not a personal attack, it's just about this one specific thing. Yeah, and then that will roll often right into number 3, explain the impact. So you could say, like, hey, I noticed you were 15 minutes late, supervisor, to our check-in meeting this morning. And because you were late, kind of made me feel like you didn't really respect my time that much, right? So that would be number 3, the impact. Like you were late and it didn't make me feel like you were respecting me and my time. So you want to correlate the action with something, how it made you feel. Yeah. And then number 4, pause. If they, I mean, we're all human. We all are prone to error. Some people do get kind of defensive when they hear feedback, so you want to pause and like read them. But if they might not, they might get defensive. But if they do, just reroute it in, hey, this isn't about you. I think you're great as a person, but it was just that one specific thing. And I think I want our relationship to be solid, so I think we should work together to find a solution, right? And that'll flow into step 5. And step 5 really does need to be collaborative. You need to work together with your supervisor or with whoever, whatever coworker you're giving feedback. And you need to like both suggest solutions and create good solutions to whatever problem, because if it's not collaborative, oftentimes it doesn't work. If it's just you saying you were late, you need to be more timely, just get your stuff together. Oftentimes I don't think that will work, but if they collaborate and are like, oh man, so sorry, totally right, I was late, how about I shoot you a text if I'm going to be late? And oftentimes joint solutions work better. Okay, I think that's all I got. Hit it, Meredith. So I thought it'd be super fun to do this really cute scenario. So if I could have somebody volunteer and unmute themselves and read the scenario, I would love to hear your lovely voice. I will call someone out if nobody volunteers, but I'll give it another 20 seconds.
I will confess I'm not great at anything that smacks of confrontation. So for a lot, in that sort of situation, my inclination is more to go with, oh, is there a better time that we can talk? Sort of like which is passive aggressive. I'll own that. But indicating that this is not working.
Yeah, that's a great point too, Kim. Kim, while you're talking, do you want to read this out to the class? The whole situation, the whole big bullet there.
That's what happens when you speak up. You get called on.
Thanks, Kim. You're the best.
You set up a check-in meeting with Meredith to discuss some issues you're having with your host site supervisor. While on the Zoom call, Meredith appears to be paying more attention to her pets than to you. You understand that there are some hazards you can't really control, like when Apollo knocks over her pencil jar. But you are understandably upset when Meredith interrupts you several times to compliment Schnapps on how beautiful they are today.
Awesome, thank you, Kim. That was great. So how about I want to volunteer someone to run through this scenario and giving feedback about this specific situation to Meredith. So can I have a bold volunteer from the Vista cohort to run through, in this situation, how you would give feedback to Meredith about how she is constantly paying much more attention to Schnapps in your one-on-one meeting than to you?
Can I just say this feels targeted, man?
Can I also
feel like
say
this is Mara giving feedback.
I asked permission before
I know.
Yeah, Chris loves Meredith, so he'll be great at feedback. Does anyone else want to volunteer before I throw Chris under the bus? Because I think this is super funny, and I would want to do this. I'll do 20 more seconds here for someone to pop up.
You also don't have to share the full thing, but like, how would you approach talking to a supervisor or someone that you work with as, you're saying, look, this is not, a deal breaker habit, but this is really aggravating and it's really hard to have a real conversation. Oh, thanks, June. This is really just a play for me to get attention and feedback. But no, seriously, like, how would you guys handle that? You can type it in the chat or type it in or unmute yourself. It's fun to talk in webinars.
June,
also the passive aggressive one. I would certainly be the person to say, hey, is this a bad time or can we reschedule? Looks like, you have a lot of other things going on. I totally go into that mode. So, yeah, because this was like, what? It was so, there was just like, this is the last person I would expect to do that. But again, you use the I statements. I feel very bad when you don't when I feel like you're not listening, when you're talking to the, is it the dog? Schnapps is the dog. When you're talking to the dog, I feel like you're not listening to me, and I don't think that's what you mean to do. So how do we fix that? How do we make that better? Is there a different time to meet, a different option? Would a phone call be better? Those kinds of things.
Awesome. That was great, June. Yeah, and Meredith probably wouldn't do this. It was a very hyperbolic example because I think I'm funny sometimes, but that was great, June. Feedback doesn't have to be like a big scary thing. It can be exactly like what June did, 4 sentences, 1 minute of your life, and usually it goes over pretty smoothly. So yeah. All right, cool. That's all I had. I think I have one more thing I want to touch on. So feel free to keep shouting out how you would address Meredith in the chat if you want to keep, dragging her over the coals. But I'm going to move on to this next slide because I think it's really hard to do right now. So one other thing I wanted to touch on was how to create community at your host site. And I want to note that this is hard, like even when you're serving in person, but I can't even imagine serving like virtually, doing a Vista year serving virtually. So I want to note that you're not imagining it. It is hard. And it's also, I think, even though it is hard, I think we should keep rooting ourselves back in why it's important, because, a community is like just the manifestation of the people within the organization relating to like the same mission and the same cultural values, and you're within the community now, you're within the organization, so you are a part of this new community, this new work community. So I think it is important to try to build this sense of belonging and comfort at work, because I think like we want to belong and we want to feel accepted at work, and then oftentimes for me personally, when I do feel a great sense of belonging at work, my work feels much more meaningful to me, and it's a lot easier, and it feels a lot better. Yeah, so now that we know what it is and why it's important, how to do it, it's very difficult, even in person, especially for those with social anxiety like myself, but the easiest way is if your host site or your organization already has some extra meetings that are a little bit outside of your scope, right? So yeah, attending the all staff meeting isn't necessarily like super in your scope as a Vista, but should you feel welcome to join, and should you even go to some of those meetings to meet other people in your work community? I think yes. I think these things outside your scope do lend opportunities for you to meet more people, build more work friendships. And right now, if you are all virtual, these are a great opportunity to actually meet and see other people, because like you're not going to run into people at the office or in the lunchroom, stuff like that. Right. And then if there aren't these opportunities present for you, and you need to like kind of create your own opportunities to meet other people and to have other conversations with your coworkers outside of like your supervisor or your one coworker that you work directly with, some ways to make your own like chances for these conversations and connections are asking for like a 15-minute coffee break with someone you kind of know but like want to get to know a little better. Totally reasonable to just like cold email people and be like, hey, like heard you talking in the staff meeting, you sounded like really knowledgeable, and I'd like to know a little bit more about blank, right? And it can be work related when you first try to jump into these things. Yeah. And then I also was really inspired by Pam, because Pam has, if you don't know, Pam has some super awesome knock-knock jokes in her email signature at the bottom, and they make me laugh quite frequently. So I thought it'd be cool if you wanted to be kind of cute and kitschy in your emails, you could like do a little department challenge with who has the best like whatever in their email signature. It could be who has the best knock-knock joke, who has the cutest pet picture in their email signature, something like that. Something that would build a little more repertoire and be a little more personable with your coworkers or in your department, depending how big your department is. Yeah, another good one. If you read an article or a book that's like super pertinent to your work, totally a good idea to be like, share it out with your department and say, thought this was really pertinent and appropriate. Does anyone want to meet and talk about it and read it? Yeah. Also, this last bullet point's kind of hard, but how you do build like good rapport and good connections at work and like try to fit in and belong in a community like way is just to be personable. And a lot of times that's how you do that is by being funny. So when you are, I know that's hard to like construct naturally, but for me personally, if I'm writing an email, I go out of my way to make it not as direct. Like I could email Jamie being like, hey Jamie, I need you to tell me exactly how much money we have left for professional development fund or whatever. But I go out of my way to add more personable stuff. So like I know Jamie eats nachos every Monday night. So I'd be like, hey, hope you have great nachos tonight. Let me know how they are tomorrow when you get back to me with whatever amount is left in this budget, right? So like just a little extra nudge to be funny or ask a question like, hey, how has your week been? Thanks for getting back to me on this. Really appreciate you. So for me, virtually, that is one tactic I've been using to try to, mesh with the M&A staff. So I thought I'd share some of these tips so you all can use them at your host sites. I think that's all I have. And you all are also really great resources for every other Vista. So definitely share in the chat if you have like a super funny or a great thing you did at work that maybe not this year, but could be years past. If you want, you can keep sharing that in chat. All right, I will stop talking now. That's all I have. Are there any questions before I move on? All right, cool. I'm not seeing any questions. Feel free to put your question in the chat. We'll keep an eye on that. So yeah, that's all I have. Meredith, you want to hit it?
Thank you so much, Mara. I do appreciate your humor. It is awesome. It's awesome. Like when I read emails from you, it's awesome. So now we get to talk about something that we're all usually anxious about. It's our living allowance. So of course we get paid every 15th and 30th of the month. And of course this is only like, a small amount, but it's enough where like this also represents how how a lot of the people in our communities are like surviving in this crazy time of pandemic and all this other sort of things. So we're going to talk a little bit about the budgeting side of Vista. Meredith, next slide, please. So we're going to try and budget. So the first thing that you really need to do when you start making a budget is categorizing what you're purchasing. These categories can include your rent, groceries, loans, health insurance, entertainment, cell phones, all the fun things that you use your living allowance for. These are like a good way to start like setting up like how much are you actually spending on your living allowance during the month that you get paid, and just like knowing how much you spend does help when you like start actually like creating your physical budget. So another like thing I've noticed is that when you set up like an auto pay system for certain things, so like for like rent, car payments, cell phones, internet, student loans, some of these places do offer like a discounted amount like you can pay per month. So like a perfect example is like Comcast. Comcast sometimes gives you a bonus when, or like not necessarily a bonus, but like they make it so that when you're paying it monthly via auto pay, they take off like $10 off the normal bill. It's actually quite helpful. But again, you also have to make sure that you account for that every month when you make your budget. Also, another thing that you should definitely try to keep doing is like always put like a little bit of money in like a place where it's safe. So like keep it like a little bit of your living allowance in like a savings account, or like in a jar somewhere, like for spare change, like you can put like stuff in a jar and you hold on to that for like an emergency. So like say you get into a car accident and you don't have enough money in your budget, but you have a money saved in your savings account, so you can technically pay for like any repairs to the car, or if for some reason if your car is completely totally totaled, hopefully trying to get a replacement car. Sometimes that happens. Meredith, next slide, please. So this is just an example budget that I just found just by literally going on Google and saying like free budgets, like, or like free like budgeting like sheets. So to kind of go over kind of like the basics of how some budgets work is that you combine your first income, second income. So like if you have 2 jobs, any other extra random income that you guys are making. So like if you're doing some like tutoring on the side or working to like cut someone's grass or like helping shovel someone's driveway in the wintertime, because it's slowly coming up, people. Winter is coming. And then just adding all of how much you make as your total income. Next, then of course, like setting your fixed costs. So like the things that I kind of told you earlier about categorizing your like purchases. So like this is how much you're paying for rent. This is how much you're paying for your cell phone. This is how much you're paying for internet. And like putting like usually, and that would be like, this is, you make that budgeted amount and that's usually the same as your actual amount because like you are automatically paying yeah, Mara, unfortunately sometimes like the total amount that we actually make isn't that great, but we are definitely like, we always make sure that like you have that extra amount. So but again, like usually like you're paying that set amount for rent, car payments, that sort of thing, like those don't necessarily change. But then we get into the variable expenses, so like groceries, entertainment, like those sorts of things. That way you can set like a budgeted amount. So like for me, living with 2 people, that's about maybe $200 to $300 a month because we're paying for like extra food, we're paying for toiletries, we're paying all that stuff, and usually that stays within like. And so then with when you're tracking your purchases, you can then put in the actual like how much did you actually spend for your budget, and did you go over budget, did you stay under budget. It's a really good way for you to see like how much you're actually spending on those certain like tasks. And then of course you have like how much money are you putting into your savings account, how much are you spending towards paying down debt. For me, especially with student loans, I pay way too much on my student loans, but I also want to make sure that when I eventually apply for getting my master's degree, I'm going to make sure that like I'm not going to have any debt going into getting my master's degree. So I'm making sure that I have money set aside to make sure that I'm paying for my student loan every month, as well as also keeping enough money in a savings account. So like if the proverbial like accident happens, I'm able, and like for some reason we didn't budget for it, I still have something in the reserves to keep to like potentially save me from that potential accident. Also, this template is not like, this may not be the template for you, but just find something that works best for you. Like if you think this template will help you, great, that's totally awesome. But if you have like a different like method that you're using that you feel works, that's totally fine too. Also, just as another thing, make sure to like check in with your budget at least once a week, because I'm definitely am terrible at this, because like there are days where like I don't necessarily look at my budget and then I realize I spent way too much money on pizza, because pizza is great and I spend way too much money on pizza. But at the same time, it's like making sure that like you just making sure that you're aware of like, hey, maybe I should check in on my budget this week and see how I'm doing for the rest of the month. Yes, June, pizza is great. Next slide, Meredith. So do you guys have any tips on like how you've been doing with your budget, or do you have any other like apps or methods to like track your purchases? I really kind of want to hear from everybody and see if you guys have any ideas. You can unmute yourself if you would like. Or put it in the chat. I'm fine with either. I'm also noticing in the chat that Mint has also been really helpful with keeping track of purchases. The only downside that I've seen with Mint is that you have to put in your bank information. So for me, like I really don't want like to put like that kind of information on my phone. I mean, like, I know we do a lot of things with our phones. Like we have like a lot of information on our phones, but like, I don't want to have that sort of information on there. That's just my personal preference. Another application that I've used is called Every Dollar. So you can kind of create your budget. You create like your budget in the app, and then you can like track your purchases through that. And then you can like look like on a separate screen, you can definitely put in the check, like see what your purchases are going towards. And then, yeah, Roxanne, definitely the envelope method is another. I used to do that a lot too. It really does help when you have like putting extra cash in that envelope. So like you have a set budget for the week, and then putting your excess in there. And then once at the end of the month, put that back into your savings or whatever. It's a really helpful tool. Also, Costco is a huge thing because you can get stuff in bulk. It's great.
Can I share something, Chris?
Sure.
Yeah. Just one thing I do, if you have important like payments that aren't automated, like for me, that's my student loans. So I know on the 15th we get paid. So after that, like the day after that, I always go in and make a student loan payment. And it just helps me, like that money is out of my account and paid to what it needs to be after I get my check. And then on the 30th, obviously I wait a few days because I have to pay rent, and then see what's left over, and then see what amount I can make towards my student loan payments. So that's what I do, pay important things right after I get my paycheck, so that if there's not enough money left in the bank, like I can't get that toaster oven that I really wanted. Just kidding, toaster oven's kind of scaring me. All right, Mara, out.
Awesome. Sorry, go ahead, Meredith.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I used to do the whole pay it as soon as you get it. I still do that because I have the memory of a goldfish. So then if I forget that I had that money at all, it's like, I don't ever miss it. But yeah, and then Sierra had a really good one that I just wanted to highlight too, is like put the money in your savings account and don't touch it until you like hard really need it. Because again, it's kind of the same deal as you can just kind of forget that you have it and act like you don't. And it's hard on a Vista budget, right? Because we never make enough to actually have enough to forget that you have it. But it's a really, really helpful tool that I would also suggest.
Awesome. Thank you guys all so much for your suggestions. This is really helpful. Meredith, can we switch to the next slide? Okay, so we all love the AmeriCorps portal, right? It's great. It's super helpful sometimes. So I just wanted to highlight some of these four major places on the AmeriCorps portal that you guys will be doing. So the first one being the creating a forbearance or interest payment request, choosing your end of service benefit, choosing your health benefit, and finding your nonprofit service ID number. So the nonprofit service ID is actually like the first thing you see on the Vista portal. You can actually see it very tiny as Meredith is scrolling over. I blacked it out because I didn't know how important that information was, so I just blocked it out. Yes, Meredith, I see the -1. Thank you, Meredith. So next slide, please. I just realized that's really small to see. However, so the first thing when you do is if you want to create an interest or forbearance request, you're first going to click on like that tab in the AmeriCorps portal. Then you'll see a screen similar to what's on the screen here, where it has your name, date of birth, all that stuff. And then this will create either a forbearance request or an interest payment request. The interest forbearance is basically AmeriCorps sends your information to the loan company that you are working with, and then they will make it so that you don't have to necessarily pay for your loans for the time during your service. I will freely admit that this was really helpful when I first started as an AmeriCorps member, because I did not make enough money to pay my minimum for my student loan. It was really great. So like once I finished my first service year, I was able to pay off a lot of it when I first entered. And then the next thing is the interest payment. So AmeriCorps will actually refund almost 100% of your interest accrued during your service year. And like just to be fair warning, if you do make these requests, just keep in mind this will take a few days, potentially a week long to get the response, or in some cases a couple months, depending on your depending on the like the amount that you like did for the service. So when you're going through like the list of things when you're like creating these requests, make sure all the information is correct and making sure that your service, this like when it says terms of service, make sure it is your either your current year or year you serve, or like the service you served previously. So for interest payments, that would be good. You would make sure to like either do your previous service, because then you could potentially use that to, for those who have already served a year or more, that you could potentially get that payment to for your interest accrued. But for forbearance, make sure it is your current service year. They may not, if you don't put your current service year, they may deny the request and make you redo it again, or it may make you do it again. Can we move on to the next slide? So end of year benefits. If you haven't been getting emails from the AmeriCorps portal, you have to make sure that you actually do this, because this will determine what you will get at the end of the year. So the first thing is that you can either choose between the two of the Siegel Education Award or the cash stipend. The Siegel Education Award is a grant given to us by AmeriCorps that gives you guys money to pay for your pay off loans, pay off like any extra tuition if you want to pay for tuition for another year of schooling, supplies at the school. And the cool thing is some institutions will match the Siegel Award sometimes, but again, like make sure to double check with your like the institution that you're applying to see if they will match it. So and then the cash stipend is actually basically a lump sum of money that you will get paid at the end of your service term. So for all of us, like your last paycheck will include the extra cash stipend. So the cool thing is you get the only downside to the educational award is that you can only get awarded it twice. So if you served with AmeriCorps already once and took the education award, you can only pick it one more time. After that second time, they will not allow you to take the educational award, which it really sucks. But at the same time, they're still going to try and give you some money from the cash stipend. So you can switch from the education award to the cash stipend, but you can't necessarily switch back to the cash stipend to the AmeriCorps back to the educational award. They have frowned upon that very highly, and they don't want to they don't want you guys to switch. You just make sure, like, when in doubt, always pick the educational award first. And if for some reason you don't think the educational award is something that you want or need, you can switch to the cash stipend, but it will be very hard for you to switch back. Next slide, please, Meredith.
Just to put a little bit of a finer point on that, you legit can't switch back to an ed award. It's how they allocate government funding. So we've told you 1,000 times, and we'll probably still tell you it throughout the year, but make sure that you're really positive that you're going to switch. If you're going to switch to the cash stipend, make sure that that's really what's in your best interest, because there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube if you switch. So just to put a finer point on it. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Meredith. So the next thing is choosing your health benefit. The health benefit is what AmeriCorps gives us as we serve through our service terms. So there are actually two options. The first option being the healthcare allowance, and then the second being a health benefit plan, or the IMG. You can enroll into this by going to the website listed in the presentation, which we will be sending out. This process is similar to how you create your AmeriCorps portal information. So like making sure you have your AmeriCorps portal opened up, because it will require you to put the same information from your AmeriCorps portal into this as well. Next slide, Meredith, please. So to give you like what these benefits do. So the first one, the healthcare allowance, provides you with funds to purchase things that insurance usually wouldn't pay for. So like if you have like a copay, out-of-pocket expenses, or any other purchase allowed by the Affordable Care Act, this is really great if you already have insurance through some other source. This is thank you, Mara, for putting the link in chat. Perfect. So the so like this is really great. The first plan is kind of really good if you already have private insurance, which is usually helpful because like sometimes like not everything is covered by your insurance, and you can apply to get funds sent to you so that you can pay for certain things. The health benefit plan is a benefit plan provided by the national, like by AmeriCorps. It is limited healthcare plan. And I will stress this is not insurance. The healthcare plan is something that they will provide for us in the sense of like, it'll give us a sense of like, they can give us information like the teledoc services for 24-hour teledoc services. You can like it'll help you find like places where you can get free like services that can be provided to you. But this is something that is very, very limited. Unfortunately, this is like something that is not an insurance. It's really like, it's helpful, but it's not like, it is not comparable to actual insurance. And if you guys have questions about it, or like if you have like questions about it, feel free to like contact me, Mara, or Meredith, and we can call IMG on your guys' behalf and try and figure out like what's going on. Trust me, dealing with this is something that I have some skill in, because as a diabetic, I had to get medical supplies, and talking to medical people is really not the greatest fun thing. And I am definitely willing to like do that to help you guys as well. And I think that's all I have.
Great. And I think FYI, you should be, I think that they require it. Yes, you should. Yes, but you should need to be enrolled, I think, within 90 days of starting your service. So you guys are all hitting that point soonish. So let us know. Yeah, IMG customer service is actually pretty good. If you call them, I think you need your NSPID or your social security number, and they're pretty good about helping out. The only touch point is with the healthcare allowance. It takes a while to get reimbursed. It depends. I've gotten the check in a month. Pam has waited 6 months for a check. It depends, 60 days. Thanks, Kim. So again, it's TikTok, it's coming up. So if you have any questions, you'll need to be making that choice pretty quickly. But please let us know. This is what we're here for. We're good at tracking down things like this if you have questions. TikTok. Thanks, Mara. So a couple pieces of housekeeping, and then we're going to get into a little bit of a check-in. So we're going to roll out Slack to the whole cohort in an effort to, again, try and maintain some interpersonal connections, even though we're all across the state and we're in COVID, and who knows if we'll actually ever see each other face to face, not through a screen. But we're trying to try some new ways to keep connected. So you're going to get an invitation for Slack. If you already have a Slack account, please let us know, and I think we can add you in a different way. So I know Washtenaw Literacy, right, is pretty good with having a really active Slack channel. So if you are a Washtenaw Literacy Vista, or if you're in another host site that has an active enrolling, an active enrolling Slack channel. So Slack is an instant messaging system, essentially. It's like AOL, for lack of a better term, but for businesses. So you can type back and forth. Chris, Mara, and I have been trying it out in the last week or two. It's essentially kind of like the intermediary step between a text and an email is what we use it for. There's a bunch of different threads. Yeah, kind of like Messenger, June, good point. And Kim just said that one of her tasks is to run Slack basic workshops. So we might be calling on you for your services, Kim, because that would be super helpful. But yeah, it's a really great tool. I think we're going to use that as a good way of, like, if you have a quick question for us, just send us a note on Slack. It's easier than calling us. It's easier than sending a full email. Yeah, congratulations, Kim. You got the November webinar. But that will be rolling out to your inboxes probably within the next week or so. It's optional, but we really recommend it as a way to continue to connect with your fellow Vistas and connect with us. And then we're also going to be starting these quarterly collaboration meetings. So shout out to Skylar, who brought this up a couple weeks ago. about potentially creating areas to collaborate and chat through things related to your focus area, which is either college access or workforce development. We have a lot of college access vistas that are in the college access networks. So whether it's CAPCAN, MCAN, DCAN, we've got a lot of you guys, and it's a really great opportunity for you to share your thoughts, your research, and your resources. So those will be coming out in the next week or so. They're essentially collaboration meetings. So they're mostly, you know, they'll be facilitated by Vista leaders, but they're led by you guys to try and to build a space where you guys can share resources and where you can either commiserate or work together to fix problems, whichever you choose to do. But it'll be a great way to connect with other Vistas around the state that are doing things very similar to you. Same deal with workforce development. That will be coming out soon. It's probably another Zoom meeting because we really like Zoom meetings, but it's great. So the last touch point is that thank you all for turning in your monthly reports. Kudos to all of you for being on the money with that. It's really appreciated. Thank you. So with that being said, we're going to be sending out some feedback on the narrative sections for your monthly reports. It's not because any of them were bad. It's not because we looked at them and we're like, oh no, this is bad. We started it last year. It's just a way to give you some feedback and making sure that the very weird way that we set up our narratives, we're all on the same page for that, so that when you turn in your first quarterly progress report, which is in November, BT Dubs, you guys will be really confident and set up to succeed in that. So seriously, it's not a bad thing. Even if you have a lot of comments on your narratives, it's not a bad thing at all. It's just a really weird narrative style where you have to say like Vista Merly and refer to yourself in a weird third person. It's very odd. So we just want to make sure that people are really confident in how they write that, so that when they turn around and submit a quarterly progress report, which we will then steal those narratives, it's easier for you, it's easier for us. We make it work. So keep an eye on your email for that as well. The feedback will be coming out in the next week or two. And then more information on the specific link that you can use to submit your quarterly progress report will be coming out mid to later October. Your first QPR is due in early November. So those are the big things. The other last checkpoint is that we do have a November webinar. It is whatever date that is, the first Wednesday of the month, but it's the day after Election Day. We acknowledge that. It's probably not going to be a super thought-intensive webinar, just by virtue of it's probably a long day. I know some of you guys are volunteering at polls. Kudos to you for being civically engaged. But we know that, and it will be happening. So please show up. But note that it will probably be a slightly calmer webinar because we know that people are very busy that week often. November 4th. There we go. But it will be a great time to touch base before your QPR is due. So get hyped. All right, so the last couple minutes, I just want to do a quick check-in. How are you guys feeling about service? Thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down. So like, this is awesome. Like, I've never done anything more than being a Vista. This is great. Like, this is fine. You know, we're rolling it. Why did I do this? Thumbs down. You can throw it in the chat if you don't have your camera on. We just kind of want to get how you guys are doing and how things are going for you. Good answer, Chris. That was the right answer for you. All right, thumbs, mostly ups, sideways. I'll take those. All right, cool. Cool. Again, Mara, that was the correct answer for you. Cool. So thanks, Andrew. Oh, I didn't know that you could do a thumb in this. Good to know. All right, so last touch point, because I think it is really important. What is bringing you joy this week? It is a wild year. It will likely continue to be a complicated and hard year sometimes as a Vista, but we want to really highlight some things that bring joy. So what's brought you joy in the last month or so at your service site or in your personal life? You know, we had someone get a master's degree last year, like halfway through service in the middle of COVID. Like, what's bringing you joy? What's a good thing that happened? Charisma has new plant babies. What kind of plants? I'm really bad at green thumbing, so. Olivia's in Michigan. All of our cohort is in the same state now. get it. Did you get your binder box? Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I did. It was so
Thank
exciting.
goodness. I did tracking on that, just so you know, and I thought it was delivered, but now I'm paranoid. So, Lindsay, how's your foster dog?
The foster dog is already at his home. We had him for like
That's exciting,
6
but
days
sad.
or something. Yeah.
He was really cute, though.
He was really cute.
Are you gonna foster more? Is it just gonna be like a foster train?
No, probably won't be doing it for a little bit. It was a lot. Because he was like 4 months old, so it was just a lot.
That is a lot. Puppies are a lot, man.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. Nice. Charisma, that's so many plants. Good for you. I killed 2 plants this week, so I'm jealous. RIP plants. Ooh, Roxanne, where did you go treasure hunting? That's awesome.
Well, it was Johnny, Johnny Treasure Quest. Do you guys know anything about that? He's a guy in
Sort of.
he's downstate, I think Washington Township or something. And during COVID, because COVID hit, he closed down his jewelry store, and now he's doing treasure hunts all over Michigan. And it's by county. And Mackinac County's was last week. Actually, at this point, it was almost 2 weeks ago. And we're the longest running one that nobody's found it. They release a riddle, you have to figure out the clues, and then you have to go find it. And Mackinac County sucks because we have not found our treasure. They sell 500 tickets, and then there's people on your team. So, you know, you could have 2 people on your team, 10 people on your team, whatever. But basically, over 1,000 people invaded. They had 2 of them here. One was a land quest, one was a water quest. The water quest was won in 2 days. The land quest one is we're still trying.
Somewhere. You have to get to it before the snow, and that's like, I mean, lower UP, but still TikTok, man.
Well, everybody's freaking about that, and the fact that it's hunting season. It's bear right now. Then it's grouse hunting, and then it's going to be bow, then it's going to be firearm, and then it's going to be back to bow. So right now, when you're out in the forest, you have to wear orange.
Right. To blaze orange.
To not get shot. So, you know, it's 10 grand
Treacherous.
too. It's 10 grand. So we're like all out there trying.
I mean, like, it's only an arrow for 10 grand.
I could take one.
Make the trade-off, yeah. Make the trade-off. It's like a Vista salary.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is super cool. I'm really glad that we could share joys and share victories, because I think that it's a really critical piece of Vista life is to share the good stuff, because we share the bad stuff a lot, and it's really easy to share the bad stuff, but also sharing good things in our service and then, you know, in our personal lives is really critical, because we're very quickly approaching the point where service can get really hard, and where, you know, we don't see the sun because Michigan winter and stuff like that is real. So please keep joy in your life, and keep sharing the good things that happen in your service and in your life, because we like to hear them too. So, oh, nice. And Roxanne linked to Johnny's Treasure Quest. So if you'd like to go to Mackinac County and hunt for treasure while wearing safety equipment and, you know, blaze orange, that'd be a good thing. All right,
Here,
so
I
that
wanna
is our
show
webinar
it.
for this week.
This is for
Oh,
Gene
there's,
and everyone else.
That is awesome. I want
It's so
that sticker.
cute,
But where
right?
did you get it? Where did you get it? Please send a link.
Okay, I'm gonna send a link to the whole cohort because everyone needs it. It's super cute. Yeah, I will.
super cool.
It might annoy some people, but I think it's worth it.
If you can't find a costume, depending on how much would have to be built with wires or that sort of thing. I've not done a lot of wire and foam work. I've done a little, but I can sew just about anything as long as it doesn't violate the laws of physics. So, you know, that's a possibility, not necessarily for this Halloween, but something could be arranged.
That's adorable. How big is your dog, Sierra?
That's-
Is it a big dog or a little dog?
Pretty small.
So she's like 15 pounds.
Oh, she's
So yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna find something, but I've seen like pictures of the costumes online. So like someone has to be selling them because she thinks she's not gonna be dressed up for Halloween, and she definitely is.
All right. Also, just like buy like a big baby onesie and like tape an arrow to it, and I think that would work.
Yeah, it could. I'll just have to get creative.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Brainstorming. I like it.
Yeah, if you have animals that have Halloween costumes, that might be a really great thing to share with the cohort, because the cohort likes animals, and the cohort, you know, me particularly. It would be cool if you dress up your cat for Halloween too. Live your best life. Share pictures because it's awesome. All right, thank you for joining, everybody. We will send out a link to this webinar if you are so interested in rewatching it. All the webinars go up on mnavista.org. So if you missed one, or if you are, you know, if you want to see Mara's office sticker again, you can watch it again. But please have a great rest of your week. Reach out to us if you have any questions, and thanks for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.